Yuna stared at the glowing screen in front of her, her eyes tired from hours of searching through old files. The archive station was quiet tonight, with only the soft hum of computers filling the empty halls. She was alone, which was exactly how she liked it when she was working on something important. The data fragment on her screen was old, very old. More than 2,000 years had passed since someone had written these words. Most of the file was corrupted and broken, but small pieces remained. And those pieces mentioned something that made Yuna's heart beat faster. Humans. She had heard the stories before, of course. Every child in the Galactic Coalition knew the tale of the lost species called humans. They came from a planet called Earth, somewhere in the dead sector. The stories said they had no special powers, no natural armor, no way to speak with their minds like the Valorians could. They were weak and soft. But somehow they had built ships that could travel faster than light. Then one day they simply vanished. Most people thought it was just a story, a myth to teach children about being careful with dangerous technology. But Yuna believed the stories were real. She had spent 3 years looking for proof, and now she had found something. The file described a meeting between Valorian explorers and a human ship. The date was clear: 1847 Coalition Standard Time. The humans had been friendly at first, curious about other species in the galaxy. They had shared information about their world, their culture, their technology. Then the file just stopped. No explanation, no follow-up reports, nothing. Yuna saved the file and leaned back in her chair. She needed to present this to the council, but she knew what would happen. They would smile politely and tell her she was wasting her time. They would say the file was corrupted, that the data was wrong, that humans were just a legend. But she had to try. 3 days later, Yuna stood in the Great Council chamber on Valora Prime. The room was enormous, with tall windows that showed the city below. 17 different species had representatives here, each one sitting in their special seat designed for their body type. The chamber smelled like a mix of different atmospheres and chemicals, each species breathing what they needed to survive. Ambassador Krell, the leader of the Valorian Council, looked down at Yuna from his high seat. His silver skin gleamed under. The lights in his large black eyes showed no emotion. "You may present your findings, researcher Yuna," he said, his voice deep and calm. Yuna activated her holographic display. The corrupted file appeared in the air, spinning slowly for everyone to see. She explained what she had found, where she had found it, and why she believed it proved that humans were real. The council members listened in silence. When she finished, Ambassador Krell nodded slowly. "Thank you for your work, researcher Yuna," he said. "However, I must point out that this file is severely damaged. The data could mean many things. It could even be a work of fiction from that time period. We cannot make important decisions based on corrupted information." "But the coordinates are there," Yuna said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The location of Earth. We could send a ship to investigate." "The dead sector?" Another council member spoke up, their translator making their words sound harsh. "That area of space is quarantined for a reason. Strange energy readings, sensor ghosts, equipment failures, no one goes there." "Perhaps that's exactly why we should investigate," Yuna argued. "What if the humans are still there? What if they need help?" Ambassador Krell raised one long finger, silencing her. "The council appreciates your enthusiasm, researcher Yuna, but we cannot risk ships and lives chasing myths. The dead sector has been empty for 2,000 years. If humans ever existed, they are gone now. This discussion is closed." Yuna felt her face grow hot with frustration, but she bowed her head respectfully and left the chamber. In the hallway outside, she leaned against the cool wall and closed her eyes. 3 years of work, dismissed in minutes. That didn't go well. Yuna opened her eyes to see Taman standing nearby. He was a Coalition military intelligence officer, assigned to watch over council meetings and report on security matters. His Valorian features were sharper than most, his expression always serious and hard to read. "You were watching?" Yuna asked. "It's my job to watch," Taman said. He walked closer, lowering his voice. "I'll give you some advice, researcher. Chasing myths is a good way to ruin your career. The council won't forget this. They'll think you're not serious about your work. I am serious, Yuna said firmly. The evidence is there. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's wrong. Taemin shook his head. Even if you're right, what difference does it make? If humans existed 2,000 years ago and vanished, they're not coming back. Let it go. He walked away, leaving Yuna alone in the empty hallway. She looked out the window at the city below, watching small ships fly between the tall buildings. The galaxy was so big with so many worlds and so many species. Could an entire civilization really just disappear without anyone knowing what happened? That night, Yuna couldn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the corrupted file and the council's dismissal. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she was wasting her time on a legend that meant nothing. Her computer beeped softly in the darkness. Yuna sat up, confused. No one should be sending her messages this late. She walked to her desk and opened the communication. The message was short and came from an unknown source. It had no name, no identification code, just 3 sentences that made Yuna's blood run cold. Unusual movement detected at the edge of the dead sector, multiple energy signatures appearing where sensors showed nothing before. This is not a drill. Yuna read the message 3 times, her hands shaking. Someone out there knew she was researching the dead sector. Someone had sent her this information on purpose. But why? Who would do that? She saved the message and tried to trace where it came from, but the source was hidden too well. Whoever sent it knew how to cover their tracks. Yuna walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars she could see, was the dead sector. And something was happening there. Something important enough that someone wanted her to know about it. She thought about Taemin's warning, about the council's dismissal, about the 3 years she had spent searching for proof. She thought about all the logical reasons to forget about this message and move on with her life. Then she thought about the humans, real or not, lost or alive, waiting in the darkness of space. She went back to her computer and began composing a message to Jinho, her colleague who had always supported her research even when no one else did. If something was happening in the dead sector, she needed to know what it was. The council might not care about myths and legends, but Yuna did. Tomorrow she would find a way to investigate. Tomorrow she would start searching for the truth no matter where it led. The dead sector was waking up, and Yuna intended to be the first one to find out why. The warning came from the Outer Rim 3 weeks after Yuna received her mysterious message. A colony world called Petra 9 had stopped responding to all communications. When the Coalition sent a scout ship to investigate, what they found made everyone afraid. The planet was gone. Not destroyed, but consumed. Where a thriving world with 6 million colonists had existed, there was now only a dead rock stripped of all resources. The atmosphere was gone. The oceans were gone. Even the minerals deep in the planet's core had been extracted. All that remained was a hollow shell floating in space. Commander Doyen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, and watched the recordings from the scout ship. His crew was silent, everyone staring at the images of the dead world. Doyen had served in the Coalition military for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. What could do this? His second officer asked quietly. I don't know, Doyen admitted. But whatever it was, it's still out there. He was right. 2 days later, another colony went dark. Then another. The pattern was clear now. Something was moving through Coalition space, consuming everything in its path. The outer colonies were being destroyed one by one, and no one knew how to stop it. The Coalition Council called an emergency meeting. All 17 species gathered to discuss the threat. This time, military commanders like Doyen were invited to attend. Yuna was there too, sitting in the back of the chamber with other researchers who might have useful information. Ambassador Krell's voice was tense as he spoke. We have confirmed reports of an unknown hostile force attacking our outer territories. 3 worlds have been completely destroyed. Estimated casualties are already in the millions. We need answers, and we need them now. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a massive ship, if you could call it a ship. The thing looked like it was grown rather than built, with organic curves and pulsing sections that seemed alive. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the biggest Coalition vessel. This is the enemy, Doyen said, standing to address the council. We encountered them at Petra 9. Our fleet engaged them, but... He paused, and Yuna could see the pain in his expression. We lost 70% of our ships. These things adapt to our weapons. We hit them with energy beams, and they develop shields. We use different frequencies, they adapt again. It's like they're learning from us. What are they? Someone asked. A small figure stood up from the research section. It was Sora, a xenobiologist who specialized in studying alien life forms. We managed to collect some biological samples from the debris field, she said. The analysis is disturbing. These creatures are a hive mind, millions of organisms working as one consciousness. They consume organic and technological matter, breaking it down and incorporating it into their collective. They don't communicate, don't negotiate. They just consume and grow. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Different species shouted in different languages, all asking the same basic questions. How do we stop them? How do we protect our worlds? What if they can't be stopped? Taman sat near the military section, watching everything carefully. His job was to gather intelligence and assess threats. This was the biggest threat the Coalition had ever faced. He thought about Yuna's research on humans and the dead sector. Could there be a connection? It seemed impossible, but the timing was strange. The council debated for hours, but no one had good answers. Finally, they agreed to send the entire Coalition fleet to the Outer Rim to establish a defensive line. They would evacuate the remaining colonies and make their stand at a place called Helios Junction, a strategic star system with multiple defensive platforms. Yuna found Jinho after the meeting ended. Her colleague looked worried, his usually calm face tight with stress. Did you see those ships? He asked. They're like nothing in our databases. Where did they come from? I don't know, Yuna said, but I keep thinking about that message I received. The one about movement in the dead sector. What if these things came from there? Jinho shook his head. The dead sector is on the other side of Coalition space, nowhere near the Outer Rim. It doesn't make sense. Maybe not, Yuna agreed. But I want to keep investigating. Something doesn't feel right about all of this. The Battle of Helios Junction happened 1 week later. Commander Doyen led a fleet of over 300 ships, the largest military force the Coalition had assembled in 2 centuries. They were ready. They had new weapons, new tactics, new strategies designed to overwhelm the enemy before they could adapt. It wasn't enough. The enemy, which the Coalition started calling the Krinthax after an old word meaning devourer, came with twice as many ships as expected. The battle lasted 3 days. Coalition ships fought bravely, trying every weapon they had. They used energy beams, plasma torpedoes, gravitational disruptors, even biological weapons designed to attack the organic components of the Krinthax vessels. For every tactic they tried, the Krinthax adapted. Their ships grew new armor. They developed new weapons. They learned and evolved faster than anyone thought possible. By the end of the 3rd day, the Coalition fleet was shattered. Doyen managed to evacuate the surviving ships and retreat, but they had lost over 200 vessels. Thousands of soldiers were dead or missing. The Krinthax didn't chase them. They simply continued consuming, moving from system to system, stripping planets of all resources and moving on to the next target. Back at Valora Prime, panic was spreading. People were leaving the outer cities, moving toward the core worlds. Some species began talking about abandoning Coalition space entirely and fleeing to the other side of the galaxy. The council met every day, but no one had solutions. The military didn't know how to fight an enemy that learned from every battle. Yuna and Jinho worked in the archives day and night, searching for anything that might help. Ancient weapons, forgotten technologies, historical battles that might offer insights. Sora joined them, bringing her analysis of the Krinthax biology. There's something strange in their genetic structure, Sora explained, pointing at complex diagrams on her screen. I found traces of foreign DNA in their cells. DNA that doesn't match any known species. It's like they encountered something a long time ago. Something that scared them so badly that the fear became part of their genetic memory. What could scare something like the Krinthax? Jinho asked. Sora pulled up another screen showing a DNA pattern that looked different from anything else. This specific genetic signature appears in the deepest, oldest parts of their cellular memory. Whatever this DNA belongs to, the Krinthax have a built-in terror response to it. On a genetic level, they remember being afraid. Yuna leaned closer, studying the pattern. Something about it looked familiar. She opened her own files, searching through the corrupted data about humans. There, buried in the old records, was a fragment of human genetic information saved by the Valorian explorers 2,000 years ago. The patterns matched. That's human DNA, Yuna said quietly. The Krinthax encountered humans before, and they're terrified of them. The room went silent. Jinho stared at the screens, comparing the patterns over and over. How is that possible? The human files are 2,000 years old. The Krinthax would have encountered them long before that in a different galaxy. Unless humans weren't just in this galaxy, Sora said slowly. What if they traveled to other galaxies too? What if they fought the Krinthax somewhere else a long time ago? Yuna thought about the dead sector, about the mysterious energy readings, about the message she had received. We need to go there. To the dead sector. If humans fought the Krinthax before, maybe they left information about how to stop them. Maybe... She paused, almost afraid to say it. Maybe they're still there. Taman appeared in the doorway. He had been listening. I've been monitoring your research, he admitted. I thought you were chasing myths, but now I'm not so sure. I have some influence with the Council. If you seriously think the dead sector might have answers, I can help you get authorization for an expedition. We need to move fast, Yuna said. Every day we waste, more colonies fall. More people die, Taman nodded. I'll speak to Ambassador Krell tonight. But Yuna, if we go there and find nothing, if humans are just another dead civilization, we'll have wasted resources we can't afford to lose. And if we don't go, Yuna replied, we might miss the only chance we have to save the galaxy. That night, Ambassador Krell authorized the expedition. They would take a small, fast ship into the dead sector and search for any sign of humans or their technology. It was a desperate move born from desperate times, but it was all they had left. Yuna packed her equipment, preparing for the journey. She looked at the old corrupted file one more time, at the fragments of information about a species that vanished 2,000 years ago. Soon she would know the truth. Soon she would find out if humans were really just a myth or if they were something more, something that could save them all. The ship was called the Swift Seeker, a small research vessel designed for speed and sensor range rather than combat. Yuna stood on the bridge with Taman, Jinho, and a crew of 12 coalition specialists. They were 2 days into their journey toward the dead sector, and everyone was nervous. Approaching the boundary, the pilot announced, "Sensors are already showing interference. This is why everyone calls it dead space. Our equipment barely works here." Yuna watched the view screen as they crossed into the dead sector. Space here looked normal, just stars and darkness like anywhere else. But the sensor displays were going crazy, showing false readings and energy ghosts that appeared and disappeared without explanation. It was like the sector itself was designed to confuse and misdirect. Following the coordinates from the old file, the pilot said, "If Earth is real, it should be... there." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and everyone gasped. In front of them was a star system that sensors said shouldn't exist. 6 planets orbited a yellow sun. Massive orbital stations hung in space like metal flowers. Defensive platforms bristled with weapons that made coalition technology look ancient. And everywhere there were ships, hundreds of them patrolling in perfect formations. At the center of it all was a blue and green planet, covered in swirling white clouds. Earth. "This is impossible," the pilot whispered. "The sector is supposed to be empty. How did they hide all of this?" Before anyone could answer, the Swift Seeker's communication system activated on its own. A calm voice spoke in perfect coalition standard, though with a strange accent no one had heard before. "Coalition vessel Swift Seeker, you have entered Earth defense space. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. You have 30 seconds to comply." Taman moved quickly, shutting down their engines and powering down all weapons. "Do exactly what they say," he ordered the crew. No sudden movements. A ship approached them, smaller than the Swift Seeker but moving with incredible precision. It matched their position perfectly and attached to their docking port. Through the airlock came 6 figures in armor that looked both advanced and brutal. Each piece was covered in weapons and sensors, making them look like walking fortresses. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing a human face. Yuna had seen pictures in the old files, but seeing a real human was different. They looked similar to several coalition species, but with unique features. The man's eyes were sharp and alert, constantly scanning the bridge for threats. "I'm Captain Minho of the Earth Defense Force," he said. "Which one of you is in command?" "I am," Taman said, stepping forward. "Intelligence Officer Taman, Coalition Military. We come in peace." "We're looking for—" "We know what you're looking for," Minho interrupted. "We've been monitoring your communications since you entered the sector. You're here because of the swarm, that's what we call them. You call them the Krinthax. You know about them?" Yuna asked, unable to stay quiet. "You fought them before?" Minho looked at her, and she saw something ancient and tired in his eyes. "We've been fighting them for over a century, across multiple galaxies. They're a plague, consuming everything they touch. We thought we had driven them far enough away, but apparently they found their way here." He signaled his team, and they lowered their weapons slightly. "You're going to follow us to Earth. Our leadership will decide what to do with you. If you try anything, if you deviate from our course by even 1 degree, my orders are to destroy your ship." "Understood?" "Understood," Taman said. The journey to Earth took 3 hours. Yuna spent the entire time staring at the view screen, watching the planet grow larger. Human ships escorted them the whole way, never more than a few hundred meters away. The precision of their formations was unsettling. Coalition ships moved in flowing, organic patterns. Human ships moved like machines, every action calculated and efficient. They landed at a massive facility on Earth's surface. When the airlock opened, Yuna breathed in air that smelled different from any planet she had visited. There was something alive about it, something wild. Jinho had to adjust his breathing device because the oxygen level was higher than what most coalition species were comfortable with. They were taken to a conference room deep inside the facility. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, ship deployments, and tactical information. Everything was in human languages that the automatic translator struggled to interpret. A woman entered the room, flanked by guards. She wore a simple uniform marked with symbols that indicated high rank. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her expression was all business. "I'm Admiral Jisoo, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. Sit down." They sat. Yuna noticed that the human chairs were uncomfortable, designed for human bodies rather than accommodating different species like coalition furniture did. Everything here was built for humans and only humans. Another human entered. This one wearing different clothing that suggested a diplomatic role rather than military. He smiled, and it was the first warm expression any human had shown them. "I'm Junho, Human Diplomatic Service. I'm here to help translate not just language but intentions. We know you have questions." 2,000 years, Taman said. "Your people withdrew from coalition space 2,000 years ago. We thought you were gone. Dead. Why hide all this time?" Junho's smile faded. "Because when humans first met your coalition species, things went badly. Very badly. Some of your people tried to enslave humans thinking we were weak because we have no special abilities. Others tried to steal our technology. Several human colonies were destroyed before we decided that the galaxy wasn't ready for us. So we came back to Earth, built a defensive perimeter that made our whole system look dead and dangerous, and we've been watching ever since." "Watching?" Jinho asked. "You've been watching the entire galaxy?" "Every ship, every transmission, every major event," Admiral Jisoo said flatly. "We learned our lesson. Trust has to be earned, and your coalition never earned it. But you'll help us now?" Yuna asked hopefully. "Against the Krinthax? You've fought them before." Admiral Jisoo and Junho exchanged looks. The Admiral leaned back in her chair, studying each of them carefully. "That's the question, isn't it? Why should we help the species that tried to destroy us? Why should we risk human lives for the coalition?" The room fell silent. Yuna felt a weight in her chest. They had come all this way, found humans alive and thriving only to be refused. She thought about all the colonies being destroyed, all the people dying. She thought about Commander Doyen and his shattered fleet, still trying to slow down the Krinthax advance even though they had no way to win. "Because it's the right thing to do," Yuna said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I know our ancestors hurt your people. I know you have every reason to hate us. But the people dying now, the families being consumed by the Krinthax, they didn't do anything to you. They're innocent. And if you let the Krinthax consume the entire galaxy, eventually they'll come here. You can't hide forever." Junho tilted his head, considering her words. "She has a point, Admiral." "I know she does," Jisoo said. That's why our leadership has been debating this for 3 days. Some want to stay hidden, let the galaxy burn. Others say we should help. It's a difficult decision. Captain Minho spoke up from where he stood by the door.
What about our doctrine?
We've always said that we fight to protect, not to avenge. We fight because leaving evil unchecked makes us complicit. If we have the power to help and choose not to, we're as guilty as the Krinthax. A new figure entered the room, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair. She wore no uniform, just simple civilian clothes. I'm Nari, Chief Tactical Officer. I've been analyzing your battle reports. Your coalition fights like you're having an elegant dance. You match the enemy's moves, you try to outthink them. You look for diplomatic solutions even in the middle of combat. That's why you're losing. She activated a holographic display showing the Battle of Helios Junction. Here you used energy weapons. The Krinthax adapted, so you changed frequency. They adapted again. You kept trying to find the right frequency instead of changing your entire approach. That's not how humans fight. How do you fight? Taman asked, leaning forward with interest. Nari smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We cheat, we ambush. We use weapons they can't adapt to because they're too simple. We hit them from directions they don't expect. We sacrifice pieces to win the game. Your coalition fights with honor. Humans learned a long time ago that honor in warfare is a luxury. We fight to win no matter what it costs. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Junho stood up. I need to contact your coalition leadership. If we're going to do this, they need to know what they're getting. Humans don't fight pretty. We fight ugly and we fight dirty. But we fight to win. Several hours later, they established a communication link with Valora Prime. Ambassador Krell appeared on the screen, his silver face showing surprise when he saw the human officials standing next to the expedition team. Humans, he said slowly. You're real. Very real, Admiral Jisoo said. And we've been real for 2,000 years. Your ancestors knew that when they tried to conquer us. Now I'm told your coalition is facing extinction from the swarm. The human fleet emerged from Earth defense space 3 days later, and it changed everything the coalition thought they knew about warfare. Commander Doyen watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dawn as over 200 human vessels appeared on his sensors. They were nothing like coalition ships. Where coalition vessels were smooth and elegant, human ships looked brutal. They were covered in thick armor plating, bristling with weapons mounted on every surface. They didn't glow with energy fields or shimmer with shields. They looked like flying fortresses built to absorb punishment and keep fighting. They're not beautiful, Doyen's second officer said quietly. No, Doyen agreed, but I don't think they're meant to be. Admiral Jisoo's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the bridge of her flagship was busy with humans working at stations, calling out numbers and coordinates. Everything moved with military precision. Commander Doyen, I'm assuming tactical command of the combined fleet. I need you to reorganize your ships according to these specifications. Data flooded into Doyen's systems. The humans wanted the coalition fleet broken into small groups, each one paired with human vessels. They wanted specific ship types in specific positions. The entire organizational structure was different from anything the coalition had ever used. This will take time, Doyen said. My officers need to understand the new formations. You have 6 hours, Jisoo said. The Krinthax are attacking Vex Prime. 4 million colonists are still on the surface. If we don't move now, they're all dead. The transformation happened faster than anyone expected. Human officers transferred to coalition ships, teaching new tactics through intense crash courses. Coalition officers argued at first, insisting their traditional methods worked better. Then the humans showed them recordings of their previous war against the Krinthax. The coalition officers stopped arguing after that. Yuna stayed on one of the human ships, the Indomitable Will, Captain Minho's vessel. She wanted to understand how humans fought, how they thought about war. What she learned disturbed her. You have to understand, Minho explained as they traveled toward Vex Prime. Humans evolved as hunters on a dangerous planet. Everything on Earth was trying to kill us. Big predators, tiny diseases, poisonous plants, extreme weather. We survived because we learned to be stubborn, adaptive, and creative. We learned that the animal that gives up first is the animal that dies. But you're not hunting animals now, Yuna said. You're fighting in space against an enemy with technology. Minho smiled grimly. War is still hunting, just on a larger scale. The Krinthax are predators who think they're at the top of the food chain. Humans are predators who refuse to accept that there is a top of the food chain. We'll do whatever it takes to win. The fleet arrived at Vex Prime to find a nightmare in progress. 6 massive Krinthax bioships were in orbit, slowly consuming the planet below. Smaller Krinthax vessels swarmed around them like insects. Coalition defense platforms floated dead in space, already stripped of all useful materials. All ships, this is Admiral Jisoo. Execute battle plan Hammer. Remember your training. Stay in formation. Trust your human partners. And most importantly, don't try to fight fair. We're here to win, not to look good doing it. The combined fleet split into attack groups, each one approaching from different angles. The Krinthax, sensing the attack, turned their vessels to face the largest groups. It's what they always did, focusing on the biggest threat first. That was their mistake. While the Krinthax focused on the main groups, smaller human ships released clouds of small objects into space. Thousands of them. Too small for the Krinthax to track individually. They looked like debris, like worthless junk floating in space. They were kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of dense metal with small thrusters to guide them. No energy signatures to detect, no complex systems to adapt to, just mass and velocity. The Krinthax realized their mistake too late. The kill vehicles slammed into their bioships at incredible speeds, punching through organic armor like bullets through paper. The Krinthax tried to grow new armor, tried to adapt, but the humans were already switching tactics. Fire plasma torpedoes, Minho ordered. Target the sections damaged by the kinetics. Superheated plasma burned through the wounds in the Krinthax ships. The bioships tried to heal, to adapt their cellular structure to resist heat. The humans switched again. Deploy chemical weapons. Agent Orange 7. Yuna watched in horror as human ships released clouds of chemicals designed by Sora and human scientists working together. The chemicals exploited specific weaknesses in Krinthax biology, attacking their cellular structure in ways they couldn't adapt to fast enough. The Krinthax bioship started to rot from the inside, their organic components breaking down. "This is horrific," Yuna whispered. "This is war," Minho said without emotion. "The Krinthax would consume your entire species without hesitation. We're just fighting fire with fire." The coalition ships fought alongside their human partners, learning new tactics in real time. They stopped trying to outthink the enemy and started overwhelming them with constant changes. Energy weapons, then kinetics, then plasma, then missiles, then railguns. The humans had an endless arsenal, and they cycled through it too fast for the Krinthax to keep up. But the real shock came when the ground battle started. Human transport ships landed on Vex Prime, deploying soldiers in powered armor. Commander Hyun led the ground forces, a stocky man whose voice carried absolute authority. Taemin had volunteered to observe the ground operation, wanting to understand human infantry tactics. What he saw changed his entire understanding of warfare. Human soldiers moved through the Krinthax-infested colony using tactics that seemed chaotic but were actually carefully planned. They set ambushes, used the terrain to their advantage, and employed weapons that made Taemin's stomach turn. Flamethrowers that burned Krinthax organisms, sonic weapons that disrupted their neural connections, even biological agents that turned Krinthax cells against themselves. "That building," Hyun said, pointing at a structure where Krinthax had gathered. "We need it cleared." "Minji, your squadron ready?" "Ready, Commander," a voice responded over the radio. Taemin watched as human fighter craft screamed through the atmosphere at speeds that should have torn them apart. The lead pilot, Minji, flew her ship through a gap barely wide enough to fit, pulling maneuvers that created G-forces strong enough to kill most coalition species. Human pilots could withstand it because their bodies were built for endurance, their cardiovascular systems designed to push through punishment that would rupture the organs of other species. The fighters dropped precision bombs on the building, collapsing it onto the Krinthax inside. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable. But it was effective. "Move in," Hyun ordered. "Secure the survivors and fall back to extraction point." Human soldiers advanced through the rubble, their armor protecting them from Krinthax weapons. When a soldier took a hit that would have killed anyone else, they kept fighting. Taemin saw one human with a massive wound in their side continue to provide cover fire, while their armor's medical systems kept them alive long enough to reach safety. "How?" Taemin asked Hyun. "How can they keep fighting with injuries like that?" Hyun's expression was hard. "Because they know why they're fighting. Because they won't abandon their brothers and sisters. Because humans are too stubborn to know when we're supposed to quit. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by giving up when things got hard. The battle for Vex Prime lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Krinthax force was destroyed. All 6 bioships were dead, floating wrecks in orbit. The ground forces were scattered or eliminated. The colonists, over 3 million survivors, were evacuated to safety. But the cost was high. 12 coalition ships were destroyed. 5 human vessels were heavily damaged. Over 400 human soldiers died in the ground fighting. Hundreds more from both forces were injured. Admiral Jisoo addressed the combined fleet after the battle. Good work, everyone. But don't celebrate yet. What we did today, we'll have to do again and again. The Krinthax will adapt. They'll learn from this. We need to stay ahead of them. How many battles like this can we fight? Doyen asked. We won, but the losses are acceptable, Jisoo finished. I know that sounds cold, Commander. But this is the math of war. We trade losses now to save billions later. Every battle we win means the Krinthax advance slows down. Every colony we save means more people live. Yes, soldiers die. Ships are destroyed. That's the price of survival. Yuna found Minho in the ship's medical bay visiting wounded crew members. He stopped at each bed, speaking quietly to the injured, thanking them for their service. Some would recover fully. Others would carry their injuries for life. Do you ever regret it? Yuna asked him. The cost of fighting this way? Minho looked at her with tired eyes. Every single day. Every life lost weighs on me. But you know what I regret more? The thought of not fighting at all. Of letting the Krinthax win because we were too afraid of the cost. Those colonists we saved today. Those 3 million people, they get to live because we were willing to pay the price. That has to mean something. Back on the bridge, Admiral Jisoo was already planning the next battle. The Krinthax were regrouping, adapting their tactics. The war consumed the galaxy for 3 long months. Every day brought new battles, new losses, new horrors. The Krinthax adapted to human tactics, growing smarter and more dangerous with each encounter. The combined human coalition fleet fought them across dozens of star systems, winning some battles and losing others. Billions died. Entire worlds were evacuated or lost. The economic cost was beyond calculation. But slowly, painfully, the invasion was being contained. The Krinthax advance had stopped spreading, held in place by the combined fleet's desperate efforts. Then Jinho and Sora made a discovery that changed everything. Yuna found them in the research lab aboard the Indomitable Will, both looking exhausted but excited. They had been working for weeks with human scientists, analyzing every piece of Krinthax biology they could find. The walls were covered with diagrams and genetic maps that made Yuna's head hurt just looking at them. We found it, Jinho said, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. The Krinthax weakness. It's been there all along. We just couldn't see it. Sora pulled up a holographic display showing the Krinthax hive mind structure. They're all connected, billions of organisms sharing one consciousness. That connection happens through quantum-entangled communication nodes located in their oldest, largest bioships. Think of them as brain centers. If we destroy these nodes, the hive mind fractures. The Krinthax become mindless, just simple organisms operating on instinct. How many nodes are there? Yuna asked. 3, Jinho said. 3 massive world ships, each one older than our recorded history. They're the heart of the Krinthax collective. Destroy all 3 simultaneously and the entire Krinthax force in this galaxy falls apart. Yuna called Admiral Jisoo immediately. Within hours, a war council was assembled. Human and coalition leaders gathered in holographic conference studying the data. The plan that emerged was desperate and dangerous. They would split their forces into 3 fleets, each one targeting a different world ship. The attacks had to be perfectly timed, all 3 nodes destroyed within 60 seconds of each other. If even one survived, the Krinthax would adapt and relocate their nodes and the opportunity would be lost forever. This is insane, Commander Doyen said flatly. We'll be dividing our forces in the face of the enemy. Every military academy in the coalition teaches that as the worst possible strategy. Which is why it might work, Admiral Jisoo countered. The Krinthax expect us to concentrate our forces. They expect rational, predictable tactics. This plan is neither rational nor predictable. It's desperation disguised as strategy. Captain Minho studied the tactical displays. We'll lose a lot of ships. These world ships are heavily defended. Getting close enough to destroy the nodes means penetrating deep into Krinthax territory. A lot of people won't come back. I know, Jisoo said quietly. But if we don't try, if we keep fighting this war the way we have been, we'll lose slowly instead of quickly. At least this way, we have a chance to end it. The Coalition Council, meeting on Valora Prime, had to vote on the plan. Ambassador Krell looked older than when Yuna had first met him, worn down by months of war and impossible decisions. Hana, the council representative who had supported Yuna's research from the beginning, stood to address the assembly. For 2,000 years, Hana said, her voice carrying to every representative, we told ourselves that humanity was just a myth, a cautionary tale about species that destroy themselves through aggression. We were wrong. They're not a myth. They're not a warning. They're a promise that even when facing extinction, even when all hope seems lost, some species choose to fight. Some choose to adapt. Some choose to survive no matter the cost. Today we honor that promise. Today we choose to fight alongside them, using their tactics, accepting their risks, because the alternative is the death of everything we've built. The vote passed. The three fleets began organizing immediately. Admiral Jisoo would lead the assault on the primary world ship, the oldest and most defended. Commander Doyen would command the second fleet, targeting the world ship in the northern quadrant. Taemin, promoted to general for his coordination efforts, would lead the third fleet against the southern target. Yuna asked to stay with Captain Minho's ship, the Indomitable Will, which would be part of Jisoo's fleet. She had started this journey looking for myths and legends. She wanted to see how it ended. The three fleets departed for their targets 48 hours later. The journey took a week, during which everyone prepared for what might be their last battle. Soldiers wrote letters home. Engineers checked and rechecked every system. Pilots practiced attack runs in simulators until they could fly them in their sleep. Minho found Yuna in the observation deck, staring at the stars. Having second thoughts? He asked. About the mission? No, Yuna said. About everything else? Yes, I spent 3 years looking for proof that humans existed. I thought finding you would solve everything. Instead, it just led to more questions. What happens after the war? Do humans stay hidden again? Do we learn to coexist? What if we fail? Then we fail together, Minho said simply. That's something, at least. Better than failing alone. The three fleets reached their targets simultaneously. The coordination was perfect, a testament to months of training and integration between human and coalition forces. But what they found waiting for them was worse than anyone feared. The Krinthax had known they were coming. Each world ship was surrounded by hundreds of bio-vessels, defensive platforms, and weapon systems that had been growing and evolving for months. The Krinthax had learned from every previous battle, adapted to every human tactic. They were ready. All ships, Admiral Jisoo's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. This is it. Everything we've fought for comes down to the next hour. Stay with your squadrons. Follow the plan. And remember, you're not fighting for glory or honor. You're fighting so that billions of people you'll never meet get to live. That's worth everything. That's worth our lives. Attack! The battle was chaos from the first second. The three fleets engaged their targets simultaneously, and space lit up with weapons fire. Human ships pushed forward with brutal determination, absorbing punishment that would have shattered coalition vessels. Coalition ships fought with a ferocity they had learned from humans, no longer trying to fight fair or elegant, just fighting to win. Commander Hyun led marine boarding parties into the world ships, fighting through organic corridors that tried to consume them. Minji and her fighter squadron provided cover, losing half their ships in the first 10 minutes. General Taemin coordinated his fleet's assault with cold efficiency, making hard decisions about which ships to sacrifice to achieve their objectives. On the Indomitable Will, Minho pushed his ship deeper into the Krinthax defenses, taking hit after hit. The armor held, but barely. Systems failed. Crew members died at their stations, replaced immediately by others who knew they were next. The ship's medical bay overflowed with wounded. Yuna watched it all from the bridge, feeling useless. She wasn't a soldier or a pilot. She was just a researcher who had started this entire chain of events by refusing to let go of a myth. Now people were dying because of her discovery, because she had found humanity and brought them into this war. Stop that, Minho said, seeing her expression. This isn't your fault. The Krinthax would have come whether we found humans or not. You gave us a chance to fight back. Don't regret that. The flagship shook as another impact hit them. We're almost there, the tactical officer reported. The communication node is dead ahead, but the path is blocked. We need the defensive platforms cleared. I'll handle it. Minji's voice came over the radio, strained and tired. My squadron will make a run on those platforms. Give us 2 minutes, oh negative, Minho said immediately. Those platforms will tear you apart. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Captain, Minji said, and we're out of time. The other fleets are almost at their targets. We can't be late. This is what we signed up for. Before Minho could respond, Minji and her remaining fighters dove toward the defensive platforms, drawing their fire away from the indomitable will. The platforms focused on the small, fast targets, their weapons tracking and firing. One by one, the fighters were destroyed. But they bought the time they needed. Path is clear, the tactical officer said, his voice hollow. Minji's squadron is gone. Minho's jaw tightened, but he didn't hesitate. All power to engines. Boarding teams prepare for insertion. We end this now. The indomitable will crashed through the last line of defense and latched onto the world ship's hull. Minho led the final boarding party personally, fighting alongside Commander Hyun's Marines. Yuna watched through the helmet cameras, seeing them battle through impossible odds. They reached the communication node, a massive organic structure that pulsed with bioluminescent light. It was beautiful and terrible, the physical manifestation of a hive mind that had consumed countless civilizations. Charges set, Hyun reported. Detonation in 30 seconds. Everyone out! They ran, but the world ship was fighting back. Organic matter tried to trap them, block their path. Several Marines didn't make it. Minho was the last one back to the ship, diving through the airlock as explosions ripped through the world ship behind him.